Folks, good afternoon. It's a few minutes after 3 o'clock. I would like to officially welcome you and also say hello to anyone that's joined us via live stream. Thank you for joining as well, and under such difficult circumstances, which is never easy. I thank you for being here. Mike, you travel all the way from Florida. Much appreciated to come honor your brother. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Niece Brandy, who is going to lead us with a little service this afternoon in honor of her Uncle Frank.
Good afternoon. You guys are going to bear with me first of all because this is not something I always do. So anyway, welcome to the funeral service for Frankie Bucci. Frankie P. Sorry, thank you. Frankie P. Frank Bucci, 71. Millville died suddenly shortly after arrival at the emergency room at the Spirit Medical Center in Vineland on Monday morning, April 12, 2021. The son of the late Charles and Angelina and Lena Pagano Bucci, Frankie was born in Bucci on April 3rd, 1950. He attended Immaculate Conception Regional School and Bucci High School. For the class of 1968. He was raised on Comanche Street in Bushton, but lived most of his life in Millville. He retired after a 13-year career with the Millville Board of Education with their maintenance department. Before that, Frank worked for Foster Forbes and their successor, Paul Foster, until they closed. Frank loved the horses. He was always happiest when he could go to the track and play the ropes. He was a member at one time or another of the 5th Ward Athletic Association, the Fraternal Order of Eagles, and Meade Woodward Post 1795 VFW, all in Washington. He is survived by his daughter, April L. Schweitzer of Newport, April's mother, Carol Schweitzer, 4 grandchildren, Kyle Newsom, Kaya, Austin Mitchell, Alyssa, Alexis Burke, and Alexandria Burke, and 1 great-grandchild. One great-grandchild who is on the way. Additional survivors include 1 brother, Michael Bucci, Joy, Madeira Beach, Florida, and 3 nieces, including Brandy Mendoza, Henry, and their son Dominic, Beth Myers, Dave, and their 3 children, and Brianna Wilson and Brian. Besides his parents, he was predeceased by 2 sisters. Denise Saul and Diane Bucci, and a brother-in-law, David Saul. Relatives and friends are invited to attend Friends visitation at the Freitag Funeral Home, 137 West Commerce Street, Bridgeton, on Friday afternoon, April 23rd, from 1 o'clock until 3, followed by a service at 3 o'clock. The interment will take place privately at St. Mary's Cemetery in Bridgeton. In lieu of flowers, the family graciously requests memorial contributions to a charity frankly supportive. God. St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, 501 St. Jude Place, Memphis, Tennessee, 38105. Frankie's brother, Mike Bucci, would like to share a few words.
First of all, good afternoon and thank you all for coming. I'm Mike Bucci, Frankie's older brother. I wanted to take some time to share a few memories of Frank. It's tough putting over 70 years into a few minutes. But here are some of my memories of Frank. Prior to moving to Kahanty Street, Frank has spent most of his childhood days on Nichols Street. Every summer day from sun up to sundown, we would go and play baseball, taking the railroad tracks to Bridgeton Little League. Monday through Saturday, Frankie and I, along with the Smith and Robinson family, would meet at around 8:30 a.m., play baseball at noon, take a lunch break, then play ball to around 4 p.m. Only rain would keep us off the baseball field. Frankie played Little League for over 239 and Major League Football for Owen Eyes, and later the Bridgeton Gems. Frankie playing baseball, Frankie was not only a switch hitter when batting, but he also threw left and right handed. Not many people could do that. Pitch with both hands, bat with both, you know. He made the All-Stars in baseball at age 11 and 12. A few years later, he made the All-Stars in midget football and Jets also. Jeff McMahon, who I worked with at the post office, played football with Frankie. He said his nickname was the Gunslinger. When playing football as a quarterback, Frankie would throw it back fast and straight spiral. Frankie's years from 13 to 18 were hard to recount, mainly because I joined the Marine Corps and wasn't home. I do know that later on in life he met Carol. They spent a lot of time together and had years of fond memories. He would always talk about Carol's children, Kimmy and Joey. And Frankie always enjoyed babysitting Kimmy's son. I'd always see him walk by the post office with your oldest back then, right, Jim?
Both of them.
Both of them, okay. In the later years, Carol and Frank had their daughter April, whom over the years made Frank a grandfather to Carl, Austin, Alexis, and Alexander. When I came up to visit, we'd always talk about how April and his grandkids made him happy, and we're all doing well. Frankie was a workaholic and retiring across the boards, as Brandy mentioned. After retirement, he went to work getting a job with the Millville Board of Education, and then retiring for good a few years back. Frankie enjoyed horse racing and playing pool. He, along with his buddy Blackie Polo, would travel the East Coast looking for a hustle. Blackie could have been a professional pool player. Frankie enjoyed watching him shoot billiards. He also went to most of the racetracks up and down the East Coast. When off-track betting came to Vineland, Favorites was his home, away from home. If you needed to get a hold of Frankie, most likely would be there. Most of Frank's friends have passed, so I'm sure, as I'm speaking right now, he is with Russell, Tink, Tadpole, Neil, Billy Goat, and Bobcat, to name a few of his friends that he hung with. My mom is at peace now, as is my dad. Our sisters, Diane and Denise, and brother-in-law Dave, as well as Aunt Angie. I am sure they are hooting and hollering over the pinochle game, especially with whoever gets Aunt Angie's apartment. I don't think this was supposed to end this way, with me being the oldest and only survivor of our family. But I guess this was man upstairs' plan. And until we meet again, I just wanted to say I was proud to have you as a brother. Keep an open seat for me at the card table. Rest in peace, Frankie.
was nice, Mike.
Thanks, Uncle Mike. When meeting with April to plan this service, the first thing that both of us said was he was not a religious man and would not want a religious service. With that being said, how do we properly honor not only the memory of my Uncle Frank, but to celebrate the man that he was? When I offered to speak today, the last thing on my mind was my absolute fear of public speaking, but that I wanted to do this for April, and I wanted my uncle to be remembered in a way that he would want to be remembered. The night that I offered to speak, I couldn't sleep. I got zero sleep, none. All I kept thinking about was what was I going to say. The one thing that kept popping up in my mind was to just be honest and to speak from the heart. So while this may not be the typical or the ideal funeral service, and at times you may ask yourself what the hell's going on, it will be honest and it will be from my heart. While researching non-traditional eulogies, this short poem popped up and it spoke to my heart. Not how did he die, but how did he live? Not what did he gain, but what did he give? These are the units to measure the worth of a man as a man, regardless of his birth. My Uncle Frank would often talk about being born into nothing. He was one of four, born to a police officer father with a gambling problem and a stay-at-home mom who he loved more than life itself. They never had a lot growing up, but my Uncle Frank was a hard worker from the time he was able to start working until the day that he had to medically retire. If it were up to him, he would have continued to work until the day he passed. He was a generous man and faithfully donated to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. April said when she went up to his apartment, he had tons of pictures of children there with little bald heads and cancer that he sponsored for St. Jude's. When I think about my Uncle Frank, my earliest memory of him was when he would let April and I drive his car. This one, he still had a license. We all know he did not have that for a long time. His choice. He would let April and I drive his car. I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, and he would put us on his lap and let us steer the car while he operated the pedals. My Uncle Frank was not a man to share his feelings, but if he loved you, you know it. He didn't have to speak the words. This man called his mother every single day. Most days, he called her 3 to 4 times a day. And since I promised to be honest, he drove her crazy with all his calls. She'd say, "Oh, Frankie, I'm going out for the day." Just so he'd only call her in the evening to make sure that she got home safe. He loved his mama with every part of his being. His family meant the world to him, especially his only child, his daughter April. And his grandkids, Kyle, Austin, Alexis, and Alexandria, and even Corey and Cody, who may not have been his grandchildren by blood, but they were by heart. When my mom, his baby sister, was battling cancer in Cooper Hospital, he called the bus there to see her every day. She said he'd walk in her room with a cup of coffee in his hands and say, "How you feeling, sis? Any better?" Every time. Her death broke his heart, but the only time I ever saw him shed a tear was in the hospital the day that his mom passed away. But as soon as I walked in her hospital room and started crying, he rubbed my back and said, "Don't cry, kid." She wouldn't want you to cry and be upset. So I know that he would not want any of us to sit here crying over his passing. We are going to celebrate him in a way that April and I think he would have wanted to be celebrated, by sharing memories and stories of him. They don't have to be elaborate, brief, and appropriate, as long as they come from the heart. I'll start with one of my favorite memories of him. So everybody that knew my Uncle Frank knew that he was a grouch. He was a grouch. To know this, to love him. He had a heart of gold, but his demeanor was just trashy. You didn't see him smile a lot, laugh a lot, joke a lot. So we were in Philadelphia when he was staying in Philly. And we were leaving. It was me and my husband and our son. Dominic was, say, like 3 years old. And as we were leaving, my Uncle Frank knocked on the window. Dominic was in his car seat. And he's like, all right, guys, see you later. And my 3-year-old son kindly I never saw my Uncle Frank laugh that hard. And that so hard. He's like, he just flipped me the bird. And it was an ongoing joke from him. So, like I said, the memories don't have to be appropriate. I know it's a little nerve-wracking to speak in front of a group of people that you don't know, but if I can stand up and here and do it, you guys can do it from your seat. So with that being said, we're gonna open the floor up. If anybody has any memories that they want to share, any stories, any memories, anything that they want to share. And don't be shy.
I worked at the Child Family Center for 10 years there. And we had a great time every single day. We honestly lived a lot. But at the Child Family Center, when Frank retired, they didn't replace him. So the next year they built a new playground. And Jelson, the young kid that worked with us, said that we're going to name that the Frank Bucci Memorial Playground. They used that money for the playground. Frank paid for that. So forever that'll be the Frank Bucci Memorial Playground. When you pull up the Child Family Center, you see the big sign. It's the green playground. And as long as I work there, we'll always call it that. And as long as Nelson's there, we'll probably be about 25 more years of, his name's mentioned at least once a week. Always in a good way too. We love him.
Thank
He
you.
taught us a lot. He was tough as nails, but had a heart of gold.
Absolutely.
We all knew that.
100%. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Don't make me stand up here and talk, because I can tell you stories all day.
Well, let's hear another one, just like the other one.
You want to hear another one? There's one that's beyond inappropriate, so I'm gonna say that one, but. Of course, now I'm on the spot and I'm not gonna be able to think of them. Somebody else share while I think. I know you guys have stories, memories. None? You can't tell them what you want to tell. Well, you know what, this is fine because he would not want to be in here for hours at a time, short, sweet, and to the point.
I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna just, miss seeing them, period. Just me riding along or me stopping and speaking to him. He will always notice me. And that's what I love about him. He's my cousin, but I call him Uncle Frank. So I'm James' granddaughter. Angelina, that's my great grandmother. So I'm just gonna miss seeing him. And just a good spirit, and I'm just gonna miss seeing them. So,
Thank you. We're all gonna miss him 100%, but the one thing that brings me peace is that he's with his mom. Be with his mom again. He loved his mom. No two ways about it, and he loved his family, and his family made him the happiest. Other than, well, I think it made him happier than the horses, but his family definitely made him happy. Yeah.
I will say too, how much Cousin Frankie loved his dad. And my mom always said, I will care for the horses. April, I know that you look just like your dad, first part, is so much like the dad and the children. We will all miss him. Lots of love to you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Have anything they want to share?
I remember one time at the Moose, I tended bar during the day and he relieved me in the afternoon. And he'd come in and say, "How was the tips today?" And I'd say, "I didn't get them." He'd say, "That's because I'm better looking than you. Come back tomorrow, I'll tell you how much I got."
He definitely had a sense of humor, especially once you got to know him and got past that kind of
Oh, yeah.
rough exterior. He liked to laugh and have a good time. Anybody else? Nobody else has anything they want to share. I am going to close out in a quick prayer. That will be all. Father God, I thank you, Lord. I thank you for my Uncle Brett's life. Lord God, and I thank you for the memories that he is able to find. Lord, I just ask that these upcoming days and weeks and months and maybe years, that you would just continue to surround April and the kids, Lord, all his grandkids, and just those that loved him. I just pray that you would surround them with your peace, Father God, that they would feel your arms around them, Lord God, comforting them when they need it. I ask that you would just continue to guide their steps, Father God, in this grieving process, and that you would help them through it, because we know that Lord, you give us the spirit of peace, Father God, and you don't want your kids to grieve, Lord, and to mourn. And I just pray that you help April with this grieving process, and just let her know that she's loved, Father God, and that she has people that love her and that will be here for her, Father God, whatever she needs. And just wrap her in your arms, Lord, and those that are going to miss him on a daily basis, just be with them, Father God. I ask this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Brandy, especially for that nice prayer. And they say when you're nervous about public speaking that you should imagine that your audience is in their underwear. Thank you for not doing that. For me, on behalf of everyone else. Mike, thank you. You spoke very well of your brother, and I'm sorry that you end up being the Lone Ranger of the Bucci family, but the generations do continue. And the blessing in all that is the love and guidance that has come down from the generations above you. You know, your mother was one of my all-time favorite people. And she was a regular for us. And yes, she never missed a prayer, never missed a service. And of course, she always had a distinct interest in knowing where everyone was headed for the meal afterwards. So for those of you in the Bucci family tradition, you can continue to speak informally and share stories. There will be a get-together at the Eagles Lodge on Cohansey Street, immediately following, very close on the edge of the old neighborhood where the family all originated. So I wish you the best. I mean, I'm sorry for Frank's passing, although the love of horse racing, and this is a bet that he's sure to win because he's back with the majority of his family. Brandy, your mom, who he loved dearly, his parents that he cared about a great deal, especially the relationship with his mother that you mentioned. And April, you're lucky to have had a dad that cared and loved you as he did, and you pass that love down the generations to your children, those that are in your heart and those that you delivered by biology. So that feeling continues. So I thank all of you for being here. This concludes the formal service. Most of you are aware that Frank's desire was to be cremated, but he will eventually be laid to rest, most likely, we believe, with his mother at St. Mary's Cemetery in Bridgeton. We would like to excuse you and give you the opportunity to come forward to pass by the casket one final time. If you'd be kind enough to follow the designations on the floor, and you'll exit out the side to your vehicles. We wish you a good and safe time at the Eagles immediately following. Thanks again for being here.